Hi, I'm Thomas Magner, aka Thomas the Hermit, and I call myself Thomas the Hermit because I'm a religious musician as well as a man of prayer. And I teach prayer, and I've been on a spiritual journey of contemplation for 45 years. I'm 59 years old, and I've gone through many phases in my life. I was married. The marriage ended in divorce. This is some 20 years ago. The marriage kind of imploded, and I had many problems, you know, especially because of the way that I had grown up. And so I began to seek the Lord. The Lord spoke to me, and He said, "You need to end the relationship with your father." Now, my father was an Air Force colonel, and he had been a commander of Air Force bases and had done things in his life. And he demanded practically worship. He was an extreme narcissist. And he was extremely psychologically abusive to his children. And he was also sometimes physically abusive. It's not the physical abuse, it was the narcissistic abuse. When the Lord told me that, I was confused because I didn't think there was anything wrong there. But the Lord began to lead me and show me. About 3.5 years ago, I went homeless. I guess the problems and struggles in my life finally culminated. And at that time, I began to post on YouTube as Thomas the Hermit, and I began to share about prayer and the things I've learned about prayer. And I also began to share my journey. This journey has taken many turns and steps. I have learned many things over the years. But, by the time I was 18 years old, I was a fairly messed up human being. Now, I'm not going to give you the song and dance about drugs or things like that because I didn't do drugs. And I'm not going to tell you that I was criminal. I was not criminal. I was a very broken human being by the time I was 18. And that's when, through the charismatic renewal, I discovered Jesus. Anyways, I'm looking back over the last 3.5 years, and I put together this series, The Journey of Thomas the Hermit, and I'm learning from it. I hope you can also learn something from my journey. If my life has such a value, I hope it does. Maybe in God it does. And I'm looking at how, through contemplative prayer, I've sought a transformation in Christ. And I was living in a little 12 by 12 cabin in the city of San Antonio. A property owner had moved this cabin from the river all the way to San Antonio, and I was living in it. I had put electricity into it, and I had internet, but there was no plumbing inside the cabin. I had to go to the bathroom either at the Whataburger or over at the Valero store. It was kind of a little bit rustic type experience. And while I was at the cabin, my father died. I was very happy. I hate to say this, I was very happy when he finally died. I thought that I would be free when he was dead, but that was not necessarily the case. In any case, while I was at the cabin, finally asked to move from the cabin because inspectors were coming and people aren't allowed to live like that in San Antonio. So I had to leave the cabin, and that's when I became homeless. I was at the cabin for a couple of years. That's when I began calling myself Thomas the Hermit.
Hello. Sorry, I was praying the Divine Mercy Chaplet. My name is Thomas the Hermit, and I'm a lay contemplative and mystic. I have been praying for off and on for 35 years, and I have developed a very intense prayer life. I am praying also for you, for the world.
Listen for you in the silence. I look for you in the darkness. I find you in the peace beyond all understanding, Jesus.
I had no place to go after my friends told me to leave. Anyways, I never imagined that I would be sleeping at a Walmart parking lot. So the first experience that I had of being homeless, I drove my truck to the Walmart, fell asleep in my truck there. During the day, I would go over to a park in New Braunfels, Texas, very beautiful park, and there I would pray.
If the eye be single, the body will be bathed in light. If the will be humble, God's works you will find. If the mind be quiet, the divine can light. If your heart is pure, you shall see God.
And at night, that was for a few days as I was waiting for my reservations at Guadalupe Park.
Your word is a lamp unto my feet. Your word gives wisdom to the simple. Your word gives sight to the blind. Your word confounds human pride.
Now, my brother Mike had given me an invitation to come do some work on his garage, and while I was there, I could stay at his house. So the next leg of my journey after Guadalupe Park was in Austin, Texas. And that's when other things began to open up for me. So my brother Mike, after a few weeks, informed me that he was going to be going skiing and that he needed me to leave his house for a little while So that's when I went and camped at Tejas Park, close to Austin. And while I was at Tejas Park, I began to pray and fast.
In the tabernacle, behind the bread of presence, in the Holy of Holies is the Lamb of God. The veil was torn in two that separated us from God. It's a new covenant written on a tablet of flesh in His blood. Oh, Lamb of God. Oh, Lamb of God.
I had put out an ad on Craigslist. I was doing handyman work, and I did put an ad out on Craigslist while I was at Tejas Park in Austin, Texas. I got a call, and I began negotiating with the man, and I ended up over at his house working on his sink. He found out what I was doing as far as trying to live, as a meant-to-get hermit, and he thought, well, I've got a bunch of properties. Why don't you go stay at one of my properties and work on it? And so I began to make an agreement. But before that happened, I met his wife, and his wife said to me, are you aware that there is a Texas-wide pro-life rally happening down at the Capitol Sunday? I said, no, I don't. So one of the first things that happened is I found myself at the Texas pro-life rally in Austin.
There's the great Texas flag. And there's the Capitol. And there's the voice of life. All over this place. The old, the young, the rich, the poor, the Catholic, the evangelical, the Lutheran, all the Christian
I'm
churches.
just a girl of 16 years of age,
All came from all
with
parts
my dreams and future ahead of me. When I found I was pregnant with child, my world was changed, and I prayed, God, do with me what you want to do. God, do with me what you want to do. I believe in your wisdom. I believe in your love. I believe you are looking down from above.
So I had made the arrangement to go do some work for the property owner, and the house was in Waco, Texas. So now I'm finding myself going to Waco, Texas.
The other thing I know about Waco is that there were probably some gunslingers that were in Waco, and because it was a cow town, and they used to lead the cows across the Brazos River, and it was from there, you know, that they would also, the cowboys would have their disagreements, and sometimes there was murder. So I'm not really sure what's in store for me here in Waco. It's very, very dark out. I can't see very well. Wow. I'm looking for the address. What do we have here? Let me see what we have here. It's very, very dark out. Okay, there's the house. Wow. It looks like it's on a corner, so maybe there's some, let's see here. Okay. Okay, little entrance gate. Okay. Alright, let's check all this out. Okay. Right. It's so dark out. Oh, this house is, it's a very old house. Well, I'm here. I do not know why. Let me see, the key would be down here, close to the threshold.
Up is down and left is right. Running forward is going backwards. My head's on the ground, my feet in the sky. These are the things you taught me. You're always right, everyone else is wrong. You are good, and all people's judge. My anger's evil, but your violence is good. These are the things you showed me. You are the one who gets to succeed. You are the one who lives comfortably. You are the one who lived a full life. You are the one who held the line. That's what they say. I, your little boy, playing games at your feet, looking to you to show me the way, grabbing and seizing like a tyrant king. My God, this man wants to kill me. Lord, have mercy on me. The sun comes up and blinds your stare. Where is hope when your daddy don't care? Life is a burden you must bear, because the God who raised you demands that you fail. And the octopus, which sees you bleed, has no feelings for those on their knees. Come worship me, fill my empty needs. It's been a year since you've been gone. I waited and prayed for that day so long. I haven't shed one single tear, because I am free now that you're not here. The place that you're at doesn't hear your lies. Justice and truth there abide. Eons may pass before you see the truth. You were wrong and you made a mistake.
So I found myself entering into the darkness of Waco. And there I continued to find the struggle that I had within my own mind. In fact, there was a stronghold there. And no matter what I did, I couldn't seem to break the stronghold until I got into some really deep meditation. And I was able to overcome PTSD, the traumatic experience that happened to me when my father made me think he was going to kill me. And I was able to dismiss it through meditating upon emptiness. And then I was finally set free from a major block that was in my head. In my meditation, I had an extremely powerful breakthrough on a childhood issue, a post-traumatic stress disorder issue that happened to me in childhood. In childhood, an unscrupulous person whom I will not name made me believe that I was going to be killed. And that particular memory has been lodged in my mind my whole life, since I was 4 years old. Last night,
That memory was completely destroyed by me meditating.
So now it was time to leave the darkness of Waco.
In a dark night, and when I came here, there was no electricity, there was no water. And I've been sleeping on the floor, and I started out in the winter. Now it is summer, and I've experienced both the heat and the cold while living at this house. Now this house is a perfect metaphor about the house of yourself that you need to enter into with God and repair it. And He is leading me. And I was set free from that particular problem. And also the Lord has helped me to release more and more all attachment to the abuser. So I've been finding a lot of liberation and freedom coming and entering into the darkness of Waco. Now, I have painted this house. I have lifted its foundations, I have patched its walls, I have replaced siding, I have repaired its roof, and it's ready for someone to move into.
But as I was on my way out of Waco, the Lord had another plan. You see, all over the city of Waco, I had been seeing big billboards with pro-life messages on them. And there was this one particular thing, was this big truck that had this big pro-life stuff, all over it. And I needed to go to Sunday Mass that morning, so I went to Sunday Mass, and I see the truck. So I hunted down the people of the truck, and I found out who was responsible for all of this pro-life stuff happening in Waco. And so then I found myself embroiled in the middle of the Waco pro-life movement.
Plays ads against abortion. Well, Pro-Life Waco is responsible for that, and I think that they are the most pro-life city in all of Texas. And anyways, I'm making this particular video about the group Pro-Life Waco and how they got started and what they're doing, and the impact they are having on the city of Waco to stop abortion. Hi, Thomas the Hermit here, and I'm with John Pishada. Thank you for correcting me.
Okay.
I knew I was going to butcher that.
All right, John Pishada.
Okay. John is one of the principal founders of Pro-Life Waco. So John, you were kind of one of the co-founders for this great pro-life organization, Pro-Life Waco. Can you please tell me, I'm so interested, I want to know the beginnings, how and why that started, and who were the people who came together, and
Okay. Well,
We've been wandering in the desert 40 years has been a long time, and now we are ready to listen, to follow God's voice.
So for a little while, I was in Waco, but then I went back up to Austin for a little while. I worked on a house up there, the property owner in Lakeway, Texas. That was very interesting because Lakeway is like a very expensive suburb of Austin. And I was actually working on an expensive house and living in that area. And I was going to church in that area. That was very interesting in itself. But then I ended up going back to Waco and doing some more work for the property owner. And that's when I ran into a woman at a rally, at a pro-life rally that Pro-Life Waco was putting on. And she said she needed someone to look after her house and her chickens and her goat. So I ended up going down to Groesbeck, Texas.
Green Acres is a place to be. Farm living is a life for me. Land spreading out so far and wide. Keep Manhattan, just give me that country pride. Hello, it's Thomas the Hermit here. And if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm taking care of a small farm. Well, Thomas the Hermit here, and I'm in the micro farm in Groesbeck, Texas. And while I was praying this morning with Nancy, who's an owner of the land, and the Lord told me that He wanted me to put a garden in, and He wanted a big, beautiful garden.
So I did put a garden in, and I took care of chickens, and I killed chickens, and I also milked a goat. And then we had a falling out, so I had to leave. I was there about 6 months. I was having truck problems. So while I was there, I put a head gasket into the engine and some other repairs. And then I drove back to Waco, but I was having transmission problems.
Thomas the Hermit here, and as you can see, I am at the Walmart. I started at the Walmart over a year ago, and this looks like where I'm going to end up. I interviewed for a job yesterday. I have an inside track at Pilgrim's Chicken, and it looks like I might be getting a job and settling down. But I have a few hurdles to climb before I get there.
So when I'm in trouble, what do? I pray. So I knew how the churches were laid out in Waco, so I went to one close to the area called Sacred Heart. And I would go there and I would spend a lot of time in prayer. I would go there in the morning and I would pray, and I would pray till they closed the church. And I hooked up with the guy who opened the church, and he told me when he opened, and so I could show up, you know, as early as 6 o'clock in the morning when it was still dark, and I could get into the church, I could use the bathroom, and I could spend the day in prayer there. And that's what I began doing, and I was praying that I get the job, and I was praying about the situation with my truck, and I was praying that God would fix things. And as this was going on, you know, of course, I ran across the priest, and I was able to go to confession, and I was going to Mass there on Sundays. And this church was completely different from the churches in San Antonio. This church was predominantly a Mexican church, Hispanic church, and most of the people there spoke Spanish. And most of the masses were in Spanish. You know, this was a completely different place to be, and that's where I was going to pray. And the truck kept getting worse until eventually it broke, and I ended up with the truck stuck in back of the hall, and it was there for, you know, I was there for almost 2 years.
Hi, Thomas the Hermit here, and it is morning, and this is an update. Maybe you don't think that I've been working on the Sacred Heart Contemplative Project. But yes, I have, and I have something quite extraordinary to tell you. Now, I made a similar video like this that had to do with post-traumatic stress disorder and meditation. And you can see that on my YouTube channel. So what happened in the 2 years, not quite 2 years, but something like that. Maybe it was 1 3/4 years or something like that. What happened while I was at the Sacred Heart Parish? Well, I continued to make YouTube videos. At some point, I was, the people started, kind of helping me. So sometimes someone would stop me, and they would give me a few dollars, or sometimes, people gave me clothes. Different, people reached out to me in different ways. I would go to the men's group. The men's group always had breakfast. That was once a week. That kind of helped me out a little bit. I continued to pray a lot in the church. Some people noticed that. And there was this one man who owned a taco stand. A guy who's been very generous to me, telling me to go over to his taco stand whenever I'm hungry, and he will feed me. And not only that, he gave me money. Several people have given me money, which has helped me out. I have not asked for it. I have not been panhandling. Something moves them and they give it to me. Maybe they feel sorry for me. I don't know. He said go over and hang at his taco stand. So one day I took my guitar over there. And as I was sitting there and practicing, it came to me, oh, maybe I could play music out here and help him get more business. Okay, that was my intent. So that very day I went and bought a small amplifier, and let me show you the amplifier. Anyways, I bought this small amplifier, and I think I spent about 50 bucks for it. Of course, I didn't feel like I could spend the money, but I thought, maybe something good will happen. So I got over to his taco stand, and I began practicing. Now, you have to understand, I haven't played the guitar over a year and a half. What is my training? Okay. Well, believe it or not, I trained in classical guitar at the University of San Antonio, and I studied with a student of the famous Pepe Romero, of the Romero Quartet. I learned the technique, believe it or not, it dates all the way back to the great father of guitar, Tárrega. And so I have studied classical guitar. So I started playing a little bit of classical guitar, and I wasn't doing very well because you have to understand that I haven't been practicing. But lo and behold, as I'm sitting there, this little girl is delighted at my playing, so the father tipped me $3. And then another gentleman, while I was just practicing, tipped me another $5. So I thought that this was showing me something, so I talked to Orlando, the owner of the taco stand, and he said that I could play for tips at his taco stand. Am I making a ton of money? No. I think I calculated the other day it's amounting to about $3 an hour. But $3 an hour is more than what I had, and it's certainly better than picking up cans on the side of the road. So I started generating some income, but that's not where the story ends. One of the parishioners, we call him San Pedro because he has the keys to the church. San Pedro means St. Peter. And San Pedro told the ladies who sell religious articles out front of the church about me playing guitar. And so they invited me to play guitar for them, while they were selling religious articles.
Te busco en la oscuridad. Te encuentro en la paz más allá de todo entendimiento. Jesús.
I am playing my music here, and they let me actually, I don't know if you can see it, they actually let me put my my beggar's cup out here. So people have been coming by. So what notable things happened also while my truck and I were stuck at Sacred Heart Parish? Well, one of the things that happened was I published a video about Father Mark Goring. He was doing a very excellent job on his YouTube channel, and he had started the St. Joseph Battalion. And it was then that I said that I would speak up for Father Mark because he couldn't, because of his vow of obedience, and that he might get fired from his position in Houston if he started speaking up. And that was the first video that I had that really began making my YouTube channel grow a lot better. So I went from 300 subscribers to about 1,300 subscribers within a matter of a week. And that's one of the things that happened while I was at Sacred Heart Parish. The other thing that happened while I was at Sacred Heart Parish is I started the Humble Holy Laity. So I started a group so that we could teach lay people how to be contemplatives, and we're still doing that. We're praying the morning and the evening prayers now, and we have every Friday we pray for people's intention. Lay people are learning how to do contemplative prayer from that push. And I also began to grow an awareness of all the things that are happening within the church and what the hierarchy is doing. And I began to become a critic of the hierarchy. In fact, it was while I was at Sacred Heart that the Lord told me several different things. One of the things that he told me is that he was calling me to mysticism and suffering. And the other thing that he told me while I was there is he asked me to speak out against what is happening within the church. And it has not been easy, all right? I could tell you a whole lot more stories. And these are the things that have happened. At some point, a couple of ladies, and there's always, some Jezebels running around within the church, some church lady Jezebels, stirred up trouble around me, and the priest gave in to their pressure, and I had to leave.
and I had been putting a van together.
Hi, Thomas the Hermit here, and behind me is this Ford Windstar. And around my neck for a long time, for I think the last 5 months, has been the key to that Ford Windstar. Somebody gave me this car, okay? And it's not completely running yet, but I almost have it. I have to replace an electronic part called the power control module. And then I need to send it to the dealer to be reprogrammed for the key. And then after that, this vehicle should be running. I already changed the title over. And then I'll need the insurance and everything that it takes to get the car up and running, and the inspection. But somebody gave me a Ford Windstar van.
So viewers kind of started helping me out, and I got the module, I got the insurance, I got everything ready to go, and I need to go do the inspection, and the Jezebels were acting up, and then finally the priest gave in to them and said I had to get out of there. So I left and I drove the vehicle over to get the inspection, and I got the inspection, and then I got everything straightened out, that I needed to with the state of Texas. And I'm driving around in this van, and then it starts acting up. I thought I had a van that was going to be drivable, and this thing starts acting up. And after messing with it and toying with it, I'm finding that there's water in the oil, rather. And I'm not at the church anymore. I've already left. The bridge has been burned somehow. I do not know how. I do not know what those ladies did or said or whatever about me. And I have this van, and so I have to call the tow truck, and I'm starting to try to see what can be done or whatever. I don't even have the parish, and I really don't even have the van because the van needs to be repaired. And that's when I had to start sleeping outside in Waco, and I started doing that.
It is the beginning of the morning, as you can see. And I am getting up. I'm getting up from sleeping here last night. This is where I've been sleeping. And one of the reasons I've been sleeping here is there's a hiding place. Let me show you. If you look right here, under this shipping container, there's a hole. And in this hole is where I keep my wallet. I'm vulnerable to somebody coming by at night and going through my pockets and taking it. My sleeping bag. This is the same sleeping bag that saved me when I first went homeless and was living in the park. It's kind of hard doing this with one hand, but
So I found a mechanic to work on the van, and he started working on it.
But I haven't gotten that deep yet.
here, this is Thomas the Hermit, and we're working on the van. Now, I don't know why it is 10 at night and we're working on the van, but that's what Lance likes to do. Right, Lance?
Yeah, because it's a little bit cooler out here at night than it is during the heat of the day.
You're a natural, Lance.
And then I was back out on the road again. So there was a problem with the oil pressure. I found metal shavings in the engine.
Hi, Thomas the Hermit here. And I have some bad news. And I also have an explanation. Behind me, you can see, is the van. I am in Oaxaca. I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing that right. It's about 30 miles outside of Dallas on Interstate 35. Interstate 35 is the highway that was going to take me all the way out to Omaha, Nebraska, my destination. As I was driving, as I left Waco, what happened was I talked to a mechanic about the van, and he said he thinks that the metal that I'm finding in the oil is from the bearings, and that the engine's going to go out. So I said, you know what? I'm getting out of Waco. You know? I'm not spending one more day. So instead of waiting for the night to travel, I got on I-35 and I started on my journey. Well, about close to where I'm at now, Waco, which is about 30 miles from Dallas, and Dallas is pretty close to the Texas-Oklahoma border. The rear main seal went out. It exploded. This vehicle right here has been nothing but an albatross. And you know what I did? I was driving the vehicle until the oil went down, and then I called up the people who invited me to come stay in Nebraska. And I said, I'm not going back to Waco. I said to them, and I said, how do you feel about me taking a bus up to Omaha? And they said, fine. So right now, I'm sitting at what is considered the Greyhound bus stop in Oaxaca. And I've already bought my ticket. It's for tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. The devil was trying to keep me in Waco. I'm getting out of Waco, and I'm going to where God has called me on the next leg of my journey, and I'm going without the van. Now, when I get there, I understand that there's plenty of internet for me to use, and that I'll be working to extend the message of the contemplation of the Sacred Heart. And I will also be trying to build the awareness within the church about what the hierarchy is doing. So, the devil is not going to keep me from getting on my journey. And neither is this van, because I'm never going to see it again. I'm abandoning this thing right here, and I'm moving on to the will of God. Do I like it? Well, you know, it's all a part of the journey.
So I make it to Nebraska by bus, and I meet my host family, and I go to their house, and they let me use their basement. And, you know, there was a good bed down there. There was internet service, everything that I needed. And I began making videos. and everything was going pretty good, you know. Um, and then what happened was I did my 7 days of prayer against the New World religion. And while I was doing that, there was this demon that I was battling. And the teenage daughter, you know, came down to do the laundry, and she sees me battling with this thing, and it scares her, whatever. So then, you know, they asked me to leave because of that. Hi, Thomas the Hermit here. I'm a man of prayer, and I'm on social media, and I also talk about things that are occurring within the Catholic Church. Now, I have found out that Vigano has talked about the Amazon Synod, and he has said that St. Peter's Basilica needs to be reconsecrated. And so, you know, I make plans to leave. It so happened that someone down in Texas had made an invitation. He had some property, and he said he lived like a hermit, and he invited me, and he thought that we could be hermit bros together. So I took a bus down to Texas, and was on the next leg of my journey. Okay, so I'm heading from Omaha to San Antonio, and as I'm doing that, I see that Vigano put out a letter, so I want to read you this letter. So I get down to San Antonio, and I meet this person, and we go to his place, and we're praying together, and we're talking about prayer and all these other things. And things were going, you know, fine. And I was streaming every day, prayers, and he was a part of it. And you know, then he started, you know, his mood started to change really bad. And he had been telling me what he was doing. You know, he was a vet, and he had been to the VA, and the VA had lined him up with certain meds that his psychiatrist wanted him to take. Apparently, he suffered from bipolar and PTSD, and he didn't want to take his medicine. You know, he said it made him drool, and he didn't want to drool. You know, is what he said, and he stopped taking his medicine, and his mood changed, and he started acting, you know, really, awful. And then he started, telling me a bunch of stuff and whatever, and and so, you know, we had a falling out. You know, he went off of his meds, and we have a falling out. Go figure, right? So I had to leave there, and I am now in San Antonio. I am in this hotel room because I do not have a steady income. I could not do anything except get a hotel, and that's where I'm at right now. This is Thomas the Hermit. I'm continuing. I'm praying for you. Say a prayer for me, and I will talk to you later.